I'd like to call to order the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission meeting for May 24th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Ms. Ppic,
Here.
Ms. McSwain,
Present.
Mr. Parr,
Here.
Ms. Rogers Garner, Mr. Williams,
Present.
and Ms. Allen.
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. We'd like to make a slight adjustment to the agenda and move the Port of Agenda update up to this time. Ms. Carlson, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman Allen. I appreciate you moving me up, and also the Ppic Commission, along with those in attendance. We do want to take a few moments to provide a brief port update. The volumes at the port have continued to remain very strong. In fact, we closed out April, our second busiest month ever as an operation. So even though it seems to be a broken record, exciting times at the port to see the volume levels at which they are at. We continue to remain very fluid and having still some best-in-class turn times for those trucking companies and customers calling locally our terminals, as well as moving quite a bit more rail over other modes like the rail, moving freight on rail and barge. So all facets of the port business is healthy and strong. We continue to really focus on the developments here at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. I think, we've all seen the headlines. We continue to see announcements as it relates to offshore wind. And in fact, had the good fortune of attending a recent conference, one of the largest in the U.S. Last month. The city of Portsmouth was represented, as Brian, Mr. Donahue was there at the conference, as well as a number of other stakeholders throughout Virginia and the Hampton Roads region. I can tell you the interest level is extremely high. It's extremely high for the overall region, but more importantly, here for the city of Portsmouth, as what's taking place at Portsmouth Marine Terminal, really putting this community on the map as it relates to offshore wind and the ability to deploy full-scale offshore wind development like we see here in Virginia with Dominion Energy. So there's tremendous traction, a lot of exposure, and I think a lot of opportunity for the new business, but really just as important, the existing business. And that's something that's critical for our community and what is a real benefit, that we have a shipbuilding, a maritime industry that exists today, and that they can fold those skills, what is right into offshore wind. And so we're very bullish still on the opportunity in front of us. We, in fact, at the port will begin construction, the improvements on the front side of the terminal as it relates to the Dominion Energy requirement. That will hopefully begin here in the summertime, as our board is slated to issue a notice to proceed, hopefully, in our July board meeting. And I, obviously said that's going to happen, but that would be our timeline and what we forecast. So some exciting announcements to come, as well as plans with the OEM, Siemens Gamesa, continue to really become solidified as they finish the design of their building and all of the permitting that you go through when doing any development, but let alone development on the waterfront. So those efforts are fully engaged and underway, and it's very exciting to see that level of activity. Secondly, and I don't know, Brian, what you're going to comment at all, but I know Dominion Energy recently, along with others, held an event here in Portsmouth at TCC at their campus, where they brought students from the city of Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake to see, and these were students who are in the career and technical training tracks, to see the opportunity. And so again, beginning to develop an understanding at that level of the students getting trained today, so they know the opportunity is on the horizon, and making sure it's being done here in the city of Portsmouth as well throughout the region. So it's really promising and something that continue to come forward at these meetings to provide updates, and also ask for help as we continue to move this opportunity forward, because it is something that I think each of us has a role to play in making sure that we can take advantage of this opportunity, which is really a once in a generational new industry for our community. So got that going on and very excited. And I'll kind of finish my remarks here. It's always dangerous. I'll keep them short and then you go long. But last week we did have a real special event that I wanted to make mention of. And I think in the packet, the press release maybe has been provided around the dredging, and we formalized our agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers. We had a nice ceremony last Friday with Senator Mark Warner Congressman Bobby Scott and Congresswoman Elaine Meloria, as well as Senator Lucas, and also Delegate Bloxham were present as we signed an official agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to formalize their investment in the dredging project that has been underway and has been previously funded up to this point by the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so we have now solidified our 50-50 cost share for what is over a $300 million dredging project. That project is slated to be completed by hopefully the fourth quarter of 2024. So we've made very good progress. The dredging machines are in the water as we speak out in the Chesapeake Bay. And we're not only deepening the channel, but we're also widening the channel. And that's a critical facet that shouldn't be lost on anyone, because that really does allow for the safe two-way transit of the ultra-large container vessels, which are really becoming a staple in the shipping industry. And really one of the things that Virginia does very well, and that is bringing these ULCVs in and working them on our docks. So a very promising, exciting times for Virginia. And I'm happy to take a moment and answer any questions if there are any from the PPIC.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions, comments? As always, thank you so much for the report back.
And Madam Chair, if I can just follow up to Mr. Gullickson's comments, and Chris, congratulations again on the continuing success and performance at your terminals. Staff was present and did participate in the event that Mr. Gullickson had mentioned, which was the Wednesdays. That is an organization that's in support of the offshore wind industry youth engagement event, which occurred in May. That was actually hosted here in Portsmouth at the Tidewater Community College campus, and there were public school students who are enrolled in local career and technical education programs. And we hosted students from Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Portsmouth public schools here at PCC. They had an opportunity to gather to hear from industry leaders in the offshore wind industry. They actually had a bus tour of Portsmouth Marine Terminal.
Sure did.
And took them out to the site so they could visit it, see it firsthand, really to engage the youth who are in high school enrolled in those programs. We have a number of students in Portsmouth that are actually in a dual enrollment situation, attending Tidewater Community College Skilled Trades Academy in the welding program, and really explaining and showing to them there is career opportunities in offshore wind and obviously other areas as well with respect to maritime and ship repair fabrication, but really working to engage with them early on to make sure they know there is a career opportunity ahead of them. And it was well attended. Pam Kroom from our staff was present and had an opportunity to speak with them as was the mayor. So really excited about this. It's something I believe we're going to continue working to do to engage the youth, and maybe even looking to start that earlier on. I think we'll probably talk about some opportunities for that later in the year. But, Chris, thank you very much for your update.
Thank you so much. At this time, we'll be doing a roll call vote for the meeting minutes of March 2022, March 22nd, 2022, March 28th, 2022, the retreat minutes, and April 26th, 2022, the regular minutes. Do we need to vote these individually? Or can we
You can do them all together.
Okay, if you had the opportunity to review those minutes, I need a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Second. The motion has been properly made and seconded for the approval of the minutes for March 22nd, 2022, March 28th, 2022, which was our retreat, and April 26th, 2022. Roll call vote. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bethea,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Allen.
Yes.
The motion is adopted. These are adjourned.
Thank you. We now move to our financial report. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'll be going through a high review of the financials. What we have here is, it's to be mentioned that not a lot happened for PPIC during the month of April. What we have here is the change of net position. The numbers that need to be highlighted in this page are that they have available cash, 1,055,198. And if you go towards the bottom, that means the change of net position for the whole year is $1,000. The second page is income statement, is the activities that happened during this year. And you'll see that revenue for the whole year are $5.6 thousand, and the expenses are $5.4 thousand. And considering some non-operating investment income, the bottom line is that the change of net position is $1,000. And this is a year-to-date budget. It shows each one in detailed report, the revenues and the expenses. And the bottom line of this is $1,000 change of net position for the whole year.
Thank you,
Unless
Mr. Reader.
you're very welcome.
Are there any questions, comments regarding our financial report? Hearing none, thank you so much. Old business, we will move on to the VMA Maritime Mixer that was had on April 28th. I was able to be in attendance along with Vice Chair and Commissioner Parr, Vice Chair Rogers Garner and Commissioner Parr. Commissioner Parr, you were there for a more deal of time than I was. Would you give a brief synopsis of the event?
Sure. So it was hosted here in downtown Portsmouth at Ppic House, and we had an opportunity to speak to some of the businesses located here in Portsmouth and other localities and their plans for the port. We got to ask them what was their impression of the port's increased activity, and it was positivity all around. So there's a lot of excitement about what's going to be happening, and these companies are looking to expand, not just at their current sites, but also looking for other sites. So I think Portsmouth is in a good position for us to be able to aid economic development.
And staff was also present at the event, so it was a well-attended event. And we had a great deal of people there.
Well, fantastic. And we will certainly, in the future going forward, also make you aware of other opportunities to participate in these types of events. We think that it's, from a networking standpoint, an excellent opportunity to be in front of existing and potential new businesses that have an interest in Hampton Roads and the Portsmouth market, and really showing them what we're doing here in Portsmouth to demonstrate that they can be successful here. And we have the resources to support them. So that was an event that we sponsored. We will be looking to do that in the future as well, and we'll certainly make the board aware of those opportunities to participate in that.
Thank you. Next up, the PPIC incentive program update. Mr. Donahue.
Yes, just a brief status report on the incentive program that we've been working on. We were hopeful we would have that present before you at your May meeting. We will need to do that in June. We are in the process of preparing the actual application itself for your review. We've reviewed the guidelines. We've made, I think, a few tweaks based on prior discussions, but we do not have that ready for you for today's meeting. So we will likely bring that back at your June meeting for adoption, so that we would have that ready to implement beginning July 1 at the start of the fiscal year.
Okay. On to new business, the FY 2023 budget. Because Vice Chair Rogers Garner is not present today, and I think it's important that everyone have the opportunity to vote on the budget. We're going to have discussion today, but then we will actually have the vote at our next meeting. Treasurer.
So we had our budget meeting, when was it, last Thursday?
Last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday?
Yes.
It was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting, but it ended up being like an hour and some change.
Very productive.
Right, it was a very productive meeting. So we wasn't gonna go over the budget line by line like we did last time. We just wanted to point out some things that we were looking to add to the budget. Brian, did you wanna
Mr. Bennett, certainly.
yeah, if we could just hit on the line items that we wanted to add extra money to, and the reasons why, and we can just discuss that today, like you stated, since we're not voting till next meeting. I think the first one was the contractual other. That's what we wanted to implement the marketing, right? to be able to market the properties. And what else did we say, Par?
So if you look at 521905 under contractual other, we've put in some money here to better market our 3920 property, given all of the interest in the port and the meeting that they recently had a couple of weeks ago, where they had, I believe, 11 site selectors from different companies around the United States. We're going to aggressively market 3920 to be able to flip that property and put it back to productive use. And then also contained within that contractual other is money to possibly explore contracting with a grant writer that would be responsible for researching possible grants, especially related to the infrastructure bill that was passed federally, to see monies that this body could go after to be able to redevelop properties or improve properties here in Portsmouth.
Right. So Brian did let us know that it was a grant writer over, already within the city building, but we thought that maybe looking to get somebody part-time, being that the overload is a lot for them, may help us with the assistance of that as well. Was there any other ones that we changed?
Chair.
Oh,
Madam City Manager, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to suggest that usually when you hire grant writers, it's based on a percentage of what they're able to secure versus giving them, a payment up front. So just keep that in mind. And of course, our grant writers are willing to assist any way possible because we try to look at collectively. We have a consultant already working with the city as it relates to the infrastructure bill. So anything that you come up with would be put in that group as well, or could be. So just keep that in mind.
was there any other ones that we increased?
There are. If I can just quickly, under your operating expenses, run through some of those changes
Yes.
from the prior fiscal year, just to note some what would appear to be extraordinary expenditures. So under your local incentive grant listing, we have a number of programs that you will see. I want to just kind of run through that list real quick to know what is being proposed for FY23. The first is the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, Lineage Logistics. This is the state grant that was provided to Lineage. That has really been carried forward since it was awarded in 2019. So we're now looking at an actual payout. It's a liability. The state is funding that. It's really comes through Ppic as a pass-through to the grant recipient, which is Lineage Logistics for their project over in West Norfolk. So we do anticipate that that will likely be paid out in the upcoming fiscal year. Below that is the local match, which is a 3-year match to be made by the PPA. I see that as a commitment that was made as part of that grant award. So we do have $60,000 that would be proposed in FY23, which is the local match again. You will see we do have some Port Host Community Grant Awards. The first is Wild Duck Lane, $93,424. This is the initial year award for the program that was received. We received a award of $500,000. The grant recipient has submitted all of their eligible expenses. Of that $500,000, $93,424 is what they expect to receive as their grant award. There were some considerable cost savings that they were able to achieve through the recycling of some of the demolition materials. So they were not eligible to use those for grant reimbursement. So that reduced their amount. We do have another grant for the Port Host program that is 3599 Progress Avenue. That's an award of $500,000. So we're expecting that will be paid out in the coming fiscal year. I'm actually processing their grant request now. That may come in under that 500 amount based on cost savings as well. But we're in the process of going through that. And then the next is your most recent award of $856,000 for the property at 3301 Shipwright Street. We have programmed this in as a liability expense. Likely that will not actually get paid out in FY '23, but it is a and then last but not least, under your local incentive grant program is the job creation grant, which we're expecting to bring those guidelines and application materials to you in June for approval. We have allocated $50,000 to that program towards a 9-month year. So those are some of the what I would call extraordinary expenses that are being proposed that we wanted to make you aware of. I think otherwise, the budget overall, there has been very little change from the current fiscal operating year. We have reflected some increases. They've been very minor, just for annual increases in your typical operating costs, but nothing unusual.
I'd like to thank Treasurer Bethea and Commissioner Parr for serving on the Budget Committee. Thank you so much for your work and diligence. Any other questions or concerns regarding the budget? Commissioner Parr?
Mr. Donahue, are there any applicants thus far this year for the Port Host Community Grant? Because I believe last year it closed July 31st. Is it the same this year?
That's a great question. We do not have any applicants at this time. The original end date on the program was for the state was July. It has been extended now to October. So we are still working to identify potential projects, whether they be from a private entity or opportunities for the city to pursue a grant opportunity there for a local project that the PPIC or any other board body could also pursue. So we're still vetting. We're still looking at opportunities to have somebody submit an application. But that deadline has been extended to, I believe it's October 3rd.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So are these grants gonna work on a reimbursement basis? So how they're gonna be paid out? Because I see that you increased the revenue line by 1.5 million. Because based on this, I see that it's gonna be covered by the grant issue. But how the grant issuance is gonna work to pay out these expenses? Because there is a
Yes,
huge increase in revenues from 500,000 to 1.6 million.
Right. So the state programs are reimbursement based. So those are funds that would be received. You need to
Based on the
reflect
expenses,
that as a
okay.
revenue coming in as well,
Okay,
or we can work with you to plug those in appropriately. I do understand your comment, what you're saying.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you do an expense before you receive it.
Right.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay. We have a need to go into closed meeting.
Chair, we do have an item for discussion in a closed meeting. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Bethea, would you please read the motion for closed meeting?
Yes, I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711, A.3 for the purpose of discussing the disposition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding 3920 and 3930 Burgess Point Road.
It is a motion on the floor. May I have a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bethea?
Yes.
Ms. McSwain?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
I hereby move that each commissioner certified to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
There's a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Buffet?
Yes.
Ms. McSwain?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, items submitted by commissioners.
Yes, okay.
Either, you both have your hands up.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. Mr. Fair?
So, me and Gracie wanted to propose something to the board that was in discussion during our budget meeting about partnering with Starbase in the port to, see if Starbase can implement some type of program where, the kids visit the port. That's why we wish he was still here, but we know he had to go. But I'll let, Gracie, elaborate more about it because we had a separate discussion about, bringing this to the, PPIC board.
So Starbase is a program here in Portsmouth where they connect students from fourth grade to sixth grade to different areas of science. And one of those areas in fifth grade is EnviroBase, where they learn a lot about the Elizabeth River. So I've been in discussions with Richard Neef, who is the program coordinator over at Starbase. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
And discussing ways that the PPIC, not with an ulterior motive of economic development, but really looking out for the future of children, connecting people to jobs that are here in Portsmouth, wondering how we can inspire that kind of wonder in young children that later leads them on to getting a career. Like if you watch a surgery when you're younger, you may go on to become a doctor, or a nurse, something like this. And so we're thinking in fifth grade, being able to use our relationship with the port to fund a pilot program this next school year, where they can take the kids out there, explore what it is to be a longshoreman, to be a data analyst inside the building, or a crane operator, something like that, being able to see the containers move, see those massive ships, the biggest ships on the East Coast. We think that that will really, instill in them a sense of pride. And then a lot of kids in Portsmouth don't even know the port is here. So we're thinking about adding a line in the budget to be able to fund that. Starbase already has the infrastructure for it. We have the relationship with the port, so it will be a team effort. It won't be too much work on our end. It's more of just funding. And so we wanted to propose that and get your feedback as other commissioners.
Mr. Crane, any question about that?
No question, sounds good.
Mr. Williams?
It will be available to all public schools.
All Portsmouth Public School fifth graders.
All right, sounds like a great idea.
And what they usually do is like my daughter attends Starbase every year. So they have summer programs where they have like 3 different sessions. You can enroll your child and most of them last about a week. And then they'll have them from, I think it's like 8 to 2 or something like that. And they, whatever one they're in, like she's doing, they just implemented a new program this year, which is like canoeing. So they'll do that thing the whole week and like graduate from it. They provide t-shirts and things like that. So it'll be like something similar to that, just, around the ports.
And what is the dollar amount you're proposing?
We were thinking around $50,000, but that is a blind number because we haven't really gone into detail with Starbase of what would it cost for the busing, obviously the cover staff costs, any liability that they would need. And then obviously we need the ports sign off on this. So we would really just be a consensus from us right now that we'd like to explore the idea more, and then we could get a number once we have a meeting between the 3 entities.
Would we need to kind of earmark some money for the budget before we vote on that?
I think you do one of 2 things. Laura, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think you could earmark the number now for a program, or once it's fully flushed out later on, maybe a couple of months, once we've had those conversations with Starbase and the board, you can always do a budget amendment to add a new line item.
It's gonna be within the grants. So, it's not like we're detailing this, for budgeting purposes, you put different grants here. So within this line, you can always play and keep like a reserve, certain amount of money. And let's say you don't use it, you don't know the amount, you still have, it doesn't have to be used no matter what, so.
So would you recommend earmarking some money? to
Yes,
put
you're
there
marking
now?
underneath under grants, just you're marking here, and you still can increase the grant line if you can imagine, but I don't see this budget is balanced to zero, so it's not gonna make a big difference.
Ms. Crown?
I just want to clarify, is this during the school day?
No, this would be we were looking at one of the summer programs they do, right? Or
I was imagining
Oh,
over
during
the
the
course
school
of
day.
the whole
Okay.
school year. Yeah,
Since you were saying every fifth grader,
yeah, during the Enviro base.
you may want to go ahead and have a conversation with the schools as well, because they have to have all field trips approved.
Do you know the deadline?
They usually have to have their plans in before school dismiss, because they also have to have permission from the Department of Ed, because it has to coincide with curriculum.
Okay.
So you also might want to reach out to the schools, because they have to build it into their calendar.
Right. Mr. Donahue, could you set up a meeting between the best port representatives, Commissioner Bethea, myself, and Richard Neef from Starbase, and I can get you his contact information, if possible, next week.
Sure,
Richard,
yeah, we'd be happy to do
Richard,
that.
yeah.
I can give you it at the end of the meeting.
That'd be great. Yes, we will look to set that up and continue the conversation. I think it's an excellent idea and opportunity to engage
Absolutely.
youth. And I think it's important to do it as early on as possible. And I don't think that fifth grade is too early to plant the seeds for the future of our workforce. So be happy to set that up.
Exposure is key. Other items submitted by commissioners? Mr. Park?
Real quick, excuse me, Chair, did we want to program an amount? We talked about where we would do that, but do you want to go ahead and?
I would earmark 50,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Park?
Yes, so 2 weeks ago, the EPA Region 3, which is the Mid-Atlantic region, and it covers Virginia. We've spoken with Randy Sturgeon before in some of our meetings. He is not the site administrator this time around for this new site. I kind of am a broken record with this, but Portsmouth has the highest concentration of Superfund sites in Virginia. We have 4. They all also happen to be located around Craddock. And then a 5th in northern Chesapeake, which touches the southern part of Craddock too. So EPA came down and gave a presentation on their proposed remediation for the Ppic iron and metal site. It's 33 acres of land. It has ingress and egress on Elm Avenue, and then as well on the tail end of Victory Boulevard. It's a pretty attractive property if it weren't covered with radium isotopes. So the next 3 to 5 years, they'll be conducting a cleanup. Public comment ends on May 27th. You can go to the EPA's website and review the 6 alternatives that they've proposed. They have a certain one selected that is their preferred one, but they obviously have to take in public comment. Their comments are welcome from us, and you can leave an official comment there so you can help them with their official determination. The remediation efforts go from do nothing and let it sit as it is, all the way down to scrape hundreds of tons of dirt and remove the entire site and replace it. They all have different effects and costs and benefits. So I would encourage y'all to read that report. It is one of the last sites it's the last site to be remediated here in Portsmouth. So it's good news.
Wonderful.
It's also located Ms. Groom, do you think we could pull up Google Maps real quick.
Google it.
Google Maps. And if you go towards like the Jordan Bridge, I just want to show the commissioners where it's located because it's adjacent almost to some of our properties. Google Maps. Yeah.
3600 Elms.
Yeah.
What is it?
3600 Elms right next door. Then 3604.
3,600?
Yeah, 3600 Elms right next door.
So while she's pulling that up, back in the day, the site was used to produce self-illuminating dials and buttons. Little did they know that the radium that made those things glow in the dark was cancerous. And so there's deposits all over the site. If you zoom in close to a ref terminals, Inc., you see that kind of in the middle? Okay, yeah. And so the site, it's it's 33 acres of land, and it goes from about here, it's kind of L shaped, and it goes like this, and it's got access to Paradise Creek. And so the EPA is funding this completely. It's not any money from our pocket, but the city will look to put this back to productive use. And so our comments are important for encouraging them to continue with the cleanup, because again, one of the alternatives is to do nothing. If there's an overwhelming amount of comment to do nothing, it's possible that nothing would be done. So I would really encourage each one of us to go on the EPA's website by Friday and leave a comment that you are in support of the preferred cleanup method, which will take 3 to 4 years and make the land available for tax productive purposes.
Is it city property?
Pardon?
Is it city's property? Who owns the land?
Oh, it's private.
Private?
Yes.
There is a program through DEQ as well, which will,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
yeah, the remediation program, excuse me, and that will provide for a 10-year exemption, provided they go through the process through DEQ and the Virginia Waste Management Board. But you have to go through the process and complete it.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe this property is going to be put up for tax sale.
Okay. So the private owner in
Right.
these certificates from the state, it will give it a 10-year effective exemption,
I think,
which might make it attractive.
yeah. I'm fairly certain that,
And exemptions make me cringe,
yeah.
but from my standpoint.
Okay. Any other items submitted by commissioners? Hearing none, report back.
Madam Chair, we have no report backs this month. I think we've covered all of our topics.
Wonderful. Any other further comments by commissioners? Hearing none, we are now adjourned.